With the 2015 Senior Bowl festivities winding to a close, I figured it was a perfect time to come on here and do an updated 2-round 2015 NFL mock draft. And you can feast your eyes below on the first 64 picks, and then you can tell me how great and or stupid you believe me to be. So what will I talk about this time? Why should you keep watching? Well, I want to talk about some of the individual picks and address why I have certain players going in certain spots. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that I have Jameis Winston again going #1 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think he's the better fit for what they want to do. I think even with the off-the-field baggage that he may bring in, they might view Lovie Smith as the right type of guy, the right type of infrastructure to have around him. And as a result, I think at this moment they might view him as the more traditional NFL pocket passer. They might view him as more NFL ready as a prospect. And as a result, he would get the nod over Mariota at #1. The one that really probably stands out to you even more than that is the fact that I have Danny Shelton from Washington going #2 to the Tennessee Titans. Look, the more I watch Danny Shelton, the more I fall in love with this guy as a prospect. The more I watch Danny Shelton, the more I am even more firmly convinced that he is the best defensive line prospect in this 2015 NFL draft, not Leonard Williams like so many believe. I look at Danny Shelton, especially if you're a team like Tennessee running that 3-4, you got to have that nose tackle type. Or if you think Shelton is that type of guy that could be that Haloti Nada type, then you must get that guy. With that said, could that be where I have Tennessee taking him at 2? Could they and Oakland perhaps switch come draft time, and Tennessee would take Shelton at 4 and Oakland would move up to get Leonard Williams at 2? That's possible. But I think Danny Shelton is the better fit for what the Tennessee Titans are going to want to do, and perhaps Leonard Williams is the better fit for what the Oakland Raiders want to do. But again, I'm going to stand firm in this, that I don't quite understand why so many people, when it comes to this draft class this year, have crowned Leonard Williams' as the best prospect in this year's draft. Not only do I not believe that to be the case, a fine prospect, sure, top 10 prospect perhaps, yes, but he's not even the best defensive line prospect in this draft. I think that clearly goes to Danny Shelton. Mock me if you want, but remember last year, I was the one that was big on freaking Aaron Donald when people were talking about him as a 2nd to 3rd round pick. Remember how big I was on Khalil Mack, what everybody else, it seemed like for the most part, was huge on Jadeveon Clowney. Just saying. All right, what else would stand out to you maybe? The fact that I have Kevin White going ahead of Amari Cooper and going in the top 5 of this draft. When I look at a Kevin White, he reminds me somewhat, at least a little bit perhaps, of a Julio Jones. Furthermore, he has more size than an Amari Cooper. And for a team like the Washington Redskins, who are, if you're going to sit there and say need defense, listen here, when you win 4 games, you have needs everywhere. And I'm going to emphasize that again, everywhere. And the Washington Redskins most certainly have needs everywhere on both sides of the roster. At that point in time, what you do, what good organizations should do, which is probably why the Redskins wouldn't do it, is you take the best available player each and every time, because eventually it's going to make you a better team, because they will eventually address needs, and they'll just be the best players you could have possibly gotten. When I look at Kevin White, the Redskins do need that big type of #1 wide receiver that would allow Deshaun Jackson to play more out of the slot, maybe open up some things on the other side for Pierre Garçon, or if you have to release Pierre Garçon due to salary cap constraints, you really have the need for somebody like a Kevin White. I believe firmly that Kevin White will be drafted ahead of Amari Cooper at this point in time. I could be wrong 3 months from now, but that's what I believe, and that's what I envision at this point. The next one that's really going to stand out to a lot of you is going to be Amari Cooper going #7 to the Chicago Bears. Look, if Marcus Mariota was there at #7, then I'm penciling him in, but I've got him going to the Jets at #6. They couldn't pass on Mariota, could they? Could they? Well, they could always use somebody like Randy Gregory out. In my opinion, the Bears should strongly explore trading up to get Marcus Mariota or Jameis Winston, whichever one of the two wouldn't go #1, assuming that both of them wouldn't go 1-2. If either Winston or Mariota fell out of the top 2, then they could fall back to pick 4 if Oakland wanted to get nuts, or more likely than not pick 6 with the Jets. The Bears at that point in time, to me, in my opinion, would need to explore the possibility of either trading up to number 3 or number 4 or number 5 in order to get that quarterback to rebuild around. And the reason being is that in today's NFL, you have to rebuild around a quarterback that you drafted. You have to. You can't sit there and go that free agent or trade route. That shit don't work in today's NFL. If you're going to sit there and say, well, Peyton Manning and Drew Brees, okay, those are Peyton Manning and Drew Brees. Those are Hall of Famers. Those are elite guys. Cutler's not that guy, and they need to move on from him. And the quickest way to move on would be to get that young quarterback in the mix. And with that said, a lot of Bears fans and a lot of media types and a lot of people will sit there and say I'm nuts for having them take a wide receiver, which appears to be a position of strength, and instead of taking somebody on the defensive side of the ball. Look, at this point in time, I could make an argument for Amari Cooper, in theory, perhaps being the best player on the board. I'm not sold on that at that moment. Again, this is part projection in terms of what could happen. But if Ryan Pace, the new Bears general manager, truly believes the best player available, you can't reach for a need if a superior prospect is there. Also, when you look at the Bears, it's more of a need than a lot of people want to let on. Brandon Marshall will be 31 in 2015, coming off of an injury-plagued season. Will the new coaching staff want to put up with his volatile personality in that locker room, knowing that he's also coming off of an injury-plagued year? Alshon Jeffrey's entering a contract year. Do you want to pay him the number 1 wide receiver money that he's going to command, knowing damn good and well he's an inconsistent number 2 that has some great games and then disappears for other stretches of time? Furthermore, there's absolutely nothing coming out of the slot for the Chicago Bears. They drastically need that weapon out of the slot. And for the time being, Amari Cooper would fit that bill. The bottom line is Amari Cooper is a good football player. Sounds like Ditka now. And he would fill a need because the Bears were 5-11, dumb dicks. They have needs every freaking where on both sides of the ball. Now, in terms of some of the players that you might be surprised with how high they moved up, I've got Jordan Phillips going number 19 to Cleveland. You're like, yeah, I haven't even had him in previous mocks. Where is he now? As I've said before and referenced before, this process is going to be fluid and ever-changing over the next 2 to 3 months. So as I get more familiar with more players and I scout and watch more players, I start to reevaluate things in the way that I see them, and I start to anticipate movement and trends of certain players up or down based off a certain characteristic. It's not me saying that a Jordan Phillips is a top 20 prospect in this draft. It's not me saying that he's not. It's just saying the type of talent that he is and the type of player that he is and the type of scheme fit that he is, I could see a guy like him, especially for the position that he plays, going in the top 20 of a draft. I really could. Same thing with Arik Armstead going 21 to Cincinnati. The Bengals desperately need a pass rusher very badly. You could look at Arik Armstead at that point in time, look at the physical gifts and skills and say, you know, this guy has tremendous upside. He would be as good of a gamble as anybody for them at number 21. And then Odighizuwa from UCLA going to the Cowboys at 27. He's a guy that I've slowly had moving up the board. It seems like he's had a good week of Senior Bowl practice. Cowboys have a need there. I think Odighizuwa, as the draft process goes along, will get more love and get more respect from talent evaluators. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him sneak into the bottom few picks of round number 1. A few other questions you might have looking at this mock draft. Why is Randy Gregory in the top 5? My question to you is, why does most everybody else have Randy Gregory in the top 5? Have they really watched? Because if they have, they cannot clearly argue to me effectively that he is the same level of prospect as a Shane Ray at that position or even a Dante Fowler or hell, Bud Dupree. I just don't see it. And I don't understand what the big deal is about Randy Gregory. I truly don't. And I think as the draft process goes along, there's a very good chance that he will drop more than people might anticipate. You might look at Vic Beasley and say, why do I have dropping to round number 2? When I look at Vic Beasley, I love watching Vic Beasley play. But when I look at Vic Beasley, you know who I see? A slightly bigger version of Corey Moore, going way back into the Michael Vick Virginia Tech days. College football fans will know who I'm talking about, or they should anyways. But you look at Beasley, he's maybe 230 pounds from what I could see. I'm not sure that he's a great fit as a 3-4 outside linebacker due to his lack of size. I'm not sure if a lot of teams will want to invest a first-round pick on him, especially a mid-first-round pick or even higher on a guy who might be restricted to being a 4-3 strong side linebacker, and they might not be sure what type of skills he has in coverage, what have you, and they might not view him as the type of special type of pass rusher that a Von Miller was. I'm not going to say for sure that Beasley will drop, but it is a possibility that he could. Same thing with Amir Abdullah in a running back class that is loaded, especially in talents for rounds 2 through, I'd argue, even 4. A guy like Abdullah, I think, could potentially drop. It's kind of like last year, a lot of people were so high on Bishop Sankey from Washington, and I didn't see it, and I just don't get it. At this point in time, at this moment, based off of what I see, I don't see it, and I don't get it when it comes to Amir Abdullah. And with other guys in this class that maybe could do more things, I think there is a chance that he could drop. I mean, still being at the tail end of round 2 is not bad, but I don't think he's going to be a third running back off the board at this point. And then you might wonder why no Marcus Peters in the first 2 rounds when I've got Dorial Green-Beckham from Oklahoma, the former Missouri wide receiver, going in the middle of round 2 to the 49ers. Look, domestic violence is one thing when it comes to the NFL. It's sad, but it's true, people. That's a fact. They're more concerned, in my opinion, with players that are problems in the locker room in terms of quitting on the team and back-talking the coaches. And I think a lot of people could be turned off by Marcus Peters, and that could cause his stock to drop. Furthermore, I think if you actually go back and watch more film on Marcus Peters, you will see a corner that's not nearly as physical as he needed to be, or as that people proclaim him to be. You'll see a guy that really got caught in some bad positions at times, isn't quite the athletic freak that many make him out to be, and isn't quite the cover corner that many make him out to be. Even if he had played the whole year at Washington, I would stand firm in saying that Marcus Peters was not the best corner in this 2015 NFL draft class, a corner class that isn't all that particularly good to begin with. So with that kind of factored in, I think other teams could see it that way and might just want to pass on Marcus Peters due to character concerns that he might be a guy that is taken round 3 or maybe even round 4 or later. You never know when it comes to the NFL. This type of stuff happens with certain guys every single year. So again, that's some of my justification, some of my reasoning for this mock draft. I'll be back in about another week with another one. So you're welcome to chime in with your thoughts on my mock draft in the comments section down below. You can tweet at me at pfspot_Schlegel on Twitter with your draft-related comments or questions. I'll see you later.